Welcome back. Well, when we talk about housing affordability, we often focus on how hard it is to buy a home. But for a record number of Canadians, the real problem is the cost of renting their home. Here's a look by the numbers. A record number of Canadians are now renters. Almost 5 million households rented in 2021, up from 4 million a decade earlier. That's an increase of 22%. While rentership is up among all age groups, it's strongest among younger people. Those aged 25 to 29 are now more than 80% likely to rent. And small cities saw faster growth of renters, 22% in the 10-year period compared with 21% increases for big cities in that time. Immigrants are also a big part of the growth of renters. Of 1 million immigrants in the past 5 years, 56% were renters. That's 2 times the national average. Shown another way, home ownership has declined steeply in the past decade. After peaking at 69% in 2011, it's fallen to 66.5% of the population as of the end of 2021. All of that adds pressure to renters. Shelter costs grew 17.6% for renters compared to homeowners in a recent 5-year period. Meanwhile, Canada's stock of subsidized rental units is just 3.5% of total dwellings, among the lowest of our peer countries. And while the number of newly built homes is rising, about 275,000 a year, it falls short of the 600,000 or more homes it is estimated we need to close the housing gap. The increasing vulnerability of so many Canadians to their housing affordability has a spillover effect on the whole economy. Rebekah Young is head of inclusion and resilience economics at Scotiabank. Thanks for being with us, Rebekah.
Thank you for having me.
And so we leaned on some of your research there in that by the numbers that we just heard. When it comes to solving this problem of the high rents that we're seeing, what do you think is the best way? Is it a simple supply and demand scenario? We need to build more rental housing.
Well, I think, first of all, yes, we need more supply. And that's something that Scotiabank and others have been saying for a few years now, is that we need more supply across the whole continuum. But I think what we see is that we saw supply pick up in the last year or so, but now it's slowed down with the economic cycle, and the gaps are still so enormous that we need almost a two-pronged strategy. We need more supply across the whole continuum, but we most likely need strategies particularly focused and very targeted at the most acute end of the spectrum, because quite frankly, housing affordability is probably elusive for some time yet for Canadians, if ever we regain that ground on housing affordability. Just those supply gaps are so large, and we have a growing population now.
That's a depressing thought. So when you say if ever, does that mean we have to recalibrate what we think about as where we'll live and what that looks like and how much we might make off a home? Do we have to change the way we think about housing?
I think we need a little bit of everything. And just the numbers that really struck out for me when I was looking at the analysis of whether housing affordability, how far down the line would it be? The reports by CMHC that you cite are somewhere around 600,000 a year that we need. And right now we're looking just a bit above 200,000 a year. We were really excited when it picked up somewhere around 275,000, but those are really big gaps. And quite frankly, even practical considerations, if you think about the construction workers or the plumbers, the engineers needed to build that supply, simply aren't in the labor force. And we really can't bring those numbers in that would be required to build that type of supply. So I think we still need to try. We need more supply, but we also need all sorts of other solutions in looking at how we live and what sorts of dwellings we need. Right. And that will change across different categories and different populations.
Would you agree in your study of this issue that part of the problem is we now have created a scenario where the home has become a big savings vehicle, and for many, in fact, more than that, it's become a way to make money. In other words, we've sort of financialized a thing that is a basic human right. Is there a disconnect, therefore, in trying to create a whole bunch of new supply because people already in homes will suffer if houses become less valuable? There's a whole bunch of existing homeowners who actually don't want that to happen.
I would argue that there's an economic case that it benefits the whole country to really kind of rein in housing affordability. If you think, for example, where we are right now with rising interest rates, and Canadians have, so much vested in mortgages, for example, that is slowing down spending in other areas. And if you look at provincial or local economies, for example, just the share of the economy that depends on this sector and related sectors really is an opportunity cost for other parts of the economy. So I think that, a more balanced growth outlook we really should be asking, what's the policy landscape that would allow other parts of the economy to thrive and have this more balanced outlook, and also balanced spending patterns for Canadian households, because it is an opportunity cost. If you're spending more on your shelter, whether it's for ownership or rent, that means you're spending or investing less in other areas.
All right, Rebekah, so good to have you with us. Appreciate your time today.
Thank you.
Rebekah Young is head of Inclusion and Resilience Economics at Scotiabank. Well, with all levels of government promising action on housing affordability, the federal government recently announced it will up the amount it's investing in affordable homes, in part in partnership with Habitat for Humanity. Julia Deans is president and CEO of Habitat for Humanity Canada. Julia, thanks for being with us.
My pleasure. Thank you.
So let's just start with this partnership. It's a significant dollar amount and a significant number of homes that are being promised, I would say. What kind of a dent do you hope that it makes?
Well, for us, it's going to help to increase our impact. We're building together with the federal government over 1,000 homes, so 1,117 new affordable, energy efficient and accessible homes. And that includes 200 homes that are specifically for Black families. So it's making a slight dent. It's adding to affordable home ownership. And more importantly, it's demonstrating the power of partnerships and what you can do by bringing together the federal government, other levels of government, private sector and not-for-profits like Habitat for Humanity, and how we can actually get something done if we put our minds and resources together.
And of course, getting something done is essential. We keep hearing that from all over. And the numbers are huge. I mean, we just heard 600,000 is the target, 275,000 is the rate we're running at in a good year. Though you have the money for these homes, are you not jostling for the same labor and commodities and all of the other things that everybody else is trying to get their hands on to build? Does that make it difficult to build at the moment?
It certainly is challenging, and it's meant a much greater cost for us in building homes and some delays because of the shortages that everybody's seeing. But it's also having us come together in different ways. So, for example, we're partnering with developers, and if they're developing a site, they will designate some of the homes on that site to be Habitat for Humanity homes, which we will then sell to families living with low incomes. So it's causing us to do things in different ways, but I actually think that's a good thing, and that's what Canada needs.
When we hear that even if we double the number of social housing in this country, we would only get to the OECD average. We'd only get to basically what we would expect to be. What does that suggest about how much more work we have to do?
Yeah, well, there's social housing, but I think we need to be thinking about investing at all points of the continuum, from social housing right through to market ownership. And our ethos and what we need to see is people moving along that continuum. So we can't just invest all in social housing or all in rental housing. We need some place for people to move. Mm-hmm. I think we need to be getting to at least averages, but looking at not just one segment of that continuum. And that means investing at all points.
Is it fair to say that the Habitat for Humanity client has changed? In other words, the reality is different and affordability has changed the story about who needs this kind of assistance?
Well, we're looking at working families who are earning a stable income. They're able to support a mortgage, and they pay 30% of their total income for that mortgage. So we can still serve the same people, but of course there are a lot more pressures on them, and there are a lot more of those people. So it hasn't changed who we're trying to serve, but there are more people we're trying to serve for sure.
And just in terms of this announcement, we've heard many other announcements. Do you feel confident that we will get where we need to be? We've had some gloomy kind of thoughts about there being kind of a new normal for affordability or lack thereof.
I think we can get there. I think Canadians know that we have an issue. We did a survey in the fall, and 90% of the Canadians we surveyed said that affordable housing is the third most important issue facing Canada behind inflation and healthcare. And 90% believe that we have a shortage of affordable housing. So people know there's an issue. They also know that they're kind of getting in the way with NIMBYism and things like that. But I think they're willing to put the pressure and the support behind governments and organizations like ours to make the policy changes, to embrace the kinds of housing that we need in places where we might not have seen it before. Because it's now not just somebody else, it's our kids, it's the people who work in our Tim Hortons, it's the people who work in our hospitals. So if we don't find housing for those people, everybody's going to suffer.
Julia, so good to have you for this. Appreciate your time.
Thank you very much for having me.
Julia Deans is president and CEO of Habitat for Humanity Canada. Coming up, a new way to reward employees for a job well done.